I don't think that the military is suited for regular civilian deployments, because I think that they're essentially, they have a lot of different interests. I think they're very honorable, but they're murder machines. They're trained to be killers.
That's not correct.
Hang on.
They're combat infantry.
People like the regulars in the military, they're trained to kill. They're not trained in the same way that we train our civilian law enforcement.
A dude I knew who did IT work for the military wasn't a killer.
No, you know what I'm talking about.
He was physically fit. Let's be real. They do PT.
No, I understand the
They're
point
being
he's
trained. They are being trained for combat.
They're
scenarios.
trained for force.
They're being trained to.
And this is a situation where force is required. That doesn't mean that they're unhinged or.
I'm not saying no. I'm literally. I just want to make sure.
I got to clarify this. What percentage of the military do you think are actually combat infantry?
I'm not sure. It doesn't matter, because the people who are being deployed are combat infantry right now.
That's fair. They're not going to deploy the IT guy on the street corner, right?
Okay, so let's just clarify when you're like the army itself is.
The people who are being deployed, the regulars who are being deployed right now.
They're combat.
They're combat people. I'm not saying that they're mindless machines. I'm not saying that they're, but they have.
You said they're murder. Did you say murder machines?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Listen, I'm not saying
they have greater.
They have killing machines. Listen. Still would have been wrong. You went straight for murder machines.
They have greater trigger discipline than your average police officer.
I am not telling you that there's anything wrong with that, right?
Especially
I want, like Kamala Harris said, I want our military to be the most lethal fighting force. Don't you?
You like Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with you.
Can we not? She's way better than Trump. Way better than Trump.
Whoa!
Way better than Trump. Way better.
Okay,
He's been on the show multiple times.
The last hour, I've just disregarded everything.
I can't accuse you of being biased. I mean, that's impressive.
Can you just address it? Right. So you want, don't you, your combat infantry to be murder machines, killing machines?
No,
come on.
Don't say murder.
Okay.
Yes, I want
triggered by the word murder. You know what I'm talking about.
Because it's not murder. It's not murder. You're Mr. Technical over here, using the right words.
You know what I'm talking about.
It's not murder. Killing machines. Do I want them to be highly trained and lethal?
Lethal. Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. You understood what I was talking about.
I'm going to answer. Guys. Okay. Let's answer the point.
Okay, yeah.
Answer the question.
They're not specialized for civilian law enforcement.
In New York City, do you know how? Do you remember when when the cops shot 7 random people?
No, I don't know.
All right, let me tell you this. Let me tell you.
What are you talking about? It's always some random fucking story with you.
You too. You were like, I met some guy who told me that the military should.
I'm trying to appeal the way that you do.
So in New York, a guy went to, I think it was the Empire State Building, and shot and killed people in his office who disgruntled.
Oh yes, I do remember that actually.
He walked out, and the NYPD ran up to stop him, and they fired, missed him, and hit 7 random people.
Hit 7 random people.
7 random people. I believe that number was 7.
Wow.
The argument that was presented, this was a New York talking point, it was a big concern that needed to be rectified, was that the cost of the lawsuits for improper discharge and injury was less than the cost of training the NYPD. So it was actually, it's your basic cost risk analysis, right? Remember that scene from Fight Club?
Capitalism for the win, huh?
It is. Remember the scene from Fight Club where Edward Norton's character is on the plane and he says, if a car is defective, and it crashes and kills the people inside, and the company knows the cost of the lawsuit will be less than the cost of a recall, we don't recall. That's what happened in New York. They said, how come these cops couldn't shoot? And they said, well, to be honest, comprehensive firearm training is more expensive than the lawsuits we have to pay out when they shoot innocent people.
Who said that?
This was the basic...
Did anyone say that?
Yes, okay. But I want to be careful here because I don't want to ascribe something to somebody who's going to sue me later for obvious reasons. The general conversation among politicians was the NYPD, or I should say the debate politically in the cultural space was the NYPD isn't doing these trainings because it's more expensive than paying lawsuits. They're not going to publicly admit it at the highest levels, but that was the internal, like, everybody kind of knows it's $50 million a year in lawsuits versus $100 million for training. So what we end up seeing is, I will say this, I would rather have a military-trained individual who later becomes a cop than a short, fat guy with no training.
No, that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, if a military person...
When you say they're killing machines or murder machines...
You know what I'm talking about, dude. You guys are soying out.
Let me finish my point.
You've been Mr. Technical this whole time.
I'm going to finish my point. A former military... I'm not talking about military because I'm trying to make the point. Former military police who have military and police training are safer and better at their jobs than somebody who just grew up in the area and got limited police training.
Okay.
Therefore, The point is, there's more discipline and better training among military personnel than local police.
Do you?
Your argument misses that point.
Okay, bring up the Declaration of Independence. Can you do this? Can you bring up the
Sure.
Declaration of Independence? I would love for you to do that. But
I don't know what that
All
has to do.
men are created equal.
no, I'm not going to
What
put
do you
that.
have to do with the
Asterix, freeborn, white
We're
Christian
talking about the
Englishman.
policy.
That is the
Talking about the policy.
context.
I did not say that former military people
That
should
is
not
true
be
because they didn't mean
cops.
black people.
No, yeah. People say, "Oh, they weren't living up to their ideals." That was actually the specific application of their ideal at the time.
We disagree with it now, for sure.
Scroll down real quick. Down, until they listen him out. He is kept among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. One of the main complaints, central theses of the founding generation was that having standing armies mixed in with civilian enforcement is dangerous.
Without consent.
You cited, didn't you?
I consent, Trump.
Rome. Okay. You cited Rome. One of the big dangers and why standing armies might be bad and deleterious to domestic liberty is that someone might use that domestic military to usurp our Republican form of government. And so these are genuine policy reasons why we don't want to have standing armies.
we don't
among
want
our
the
police
standing
force.
army to usurp our Republican form of government. The problem that we have right now is that the people, our citizens themselves, and a bunch of people who aren't citizens, have usurped that Republican form of government. So, like, this is like going into a house that's on fire with, or a house that's flooded with a fire extinguisher. Right, it's the wrong solution. That you have to look at the context. When we had the founders, they're looking at England, and there is religious persecution. Right, the king at the time was forcing ministers to read from the Sports Almanac on the Lord's Day in their church service, which violated their consciences because you got a bunch of Protestant Puritans, those kinds of things. You had tyranny, you had civil tyranny, you had ecclesiastical tyranny, and so they're coming from that, and they're coming from that with people who are homogenous. People who have the same convictions, they have the same ethnic background, and so in that context,
So
they're
this
saying
doesn't apply
our
anymore.
fear. Listen, they're saying our fear is government overreach, and even with the First Amendment, our fear is religious overreach. When the First Amendment was not to think that the First Amendment was written, they're like, you know what? We're really hoping one day that this will protect Muslims.
Well,
That's insane.
I just want to say one. I
insane.
consent. As a Chicago native, and I know I don't speak for literally everyone in Chicago. I can tell you that my friends and my homies, they work here. They're from my neighborhood. We
The
grew up
majority
together.
don't, though.
That's not correct.
You think the majority in DC don't?
The majority of who?
So
Majority of the people.
my neighborhood in
What
Chicago,
people?
my
People
neighbor-
of Chicago, people of
my-
DC.
My Democrat neighborhood in Chicago is now a Trump supporting red neighborhood. And
Who asked? Okay.
so I'm making
about
this
the city.
point. So I am saying this. For my neighborhood, where we do agree and did vote for Trump, we consent to Trump deploying to that neighborhood specifically. And I do not believe it's fair that Pritzker, the governor, infringe upon our rights as a community to request federal assistance only in our neighborhood.
Well, the city officials also don't want it. The
My
Chicago
neighborhood
city-
does. Does my neighborhood have a right to say, please help us?
No.
No?
They have a vote. They have a say in whatever count. Listen, I don't know how the Chicago city government is run. You probably know more than I do. But you have representation, and overwhelmingly the city of Chicago, the city of LA,
my-
the city of DC, they don't want this deployment there.
Let me
you
ask
know
you.
that.
Let me ask you. If Illinois, as a jurisdiction, says, do not deploy, we refuse, Trump should not do it.
Okay.
Right? You agree? You would agree with it?
Well,
The state's saying, don't come here, you don't have a right.
in this specific context, yes.
At what point do individuals lose the right, lose their rights to a superior form of government?
Well, I don't know. Are we entertaining hypotheticals at this point? Because you seem pretty resistant to it earlier.
It's not. So my point is quite literally, my neighborhood turned red and voted for Trump. This was in 2012. It was blue, Democrat voting, and then in 2016 it was blue. In 2020 it was a little red, and in 2024 it turned red and voted for Trump. Why should this particular isolated community that has a shared worldview, when they say, we actually would like the National Guard to come here to stop the violence, why should the city of Chicago, who don't live there and don't agree, be able to enforce their will and allow the crime to continue?
Because the overall levels of sovereignty are like the municipal, the state, and then the federal. So I mean,
tyranny is okay in some degrees.
I don't know what you mean by tyranny.
Okay.
You have representation.
So
in
let's
that local district, that local
let's
council.
forget,
and all you have
let's
representation.
try this. Okay, let's forget all of the country.
Yeah.
And isolate only the borders of Chicago.
Okay.
There is one neighborhood. They have an alderman. That's what the local politicians are called.
Sure.
It has specific boundaries. And in this jurisdiction, they say crime has gotten out of hand. our government has abandoned us and we need help. But the city of Chicago says you're not going to get it, and we will keep anyone who tries from coming to your neighbor to save you. Is that tyranny?
Because the overall sovereign is the city of Chicago in that case. That's the sovereign.
So people should suffer if the sovereign determines it.
Well, yeah, but your
Their
voice,
vote be damned.
your voice is not forgotten in that context because that alderman is representing his constituencies. He just doesn't command a majority in the city. The city is the sovereign. And
But we're not asking for deployment to the rest of the city.
Basically, everything that you do, Tim, is you're basically doing this kind of continuum fallacy thing.
Stop being so obtuse.
Where does a puddle become a lake?
Arguments
Come
about
on,
the King of England.
So the city of
You're pretending to be stupid intentionally.
The city of Chicago is the sovereign.
You're pretending to be stupid intentionally when I'm literally taking your argument and applying it to Chicago, and you refuse to accept it because you know you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
Let me say it again.
I'm not wrong.
When you cite the King of England as violating the rights of the colonies because the colonies is a jurisdiction under the crown, you say we have the right to oppose the king. When I say a single neighborhood in Chicago says no to the mayor, you say the mayor can tell them what they can or can't do because they don't have the right.
If you go back to the Declaration of Independence, what was the other big issue with the system in the colonies is they didn't have representation. They didn't have representation in the parliament. They didn't have any say whatsoever. That's not the same in the situation that you presented, where you have local governance and you have local governance in right next to you. It's not like you're across an ocean.
My neighborhood does not have representation at the city.
Let me finish.
At the state
you do.
level.
You fucking do. Obviously, you do.
No.
What you're saying, the alderman doesn't have any say whatsoever
at the state level.
Okay, at the state level,
there is an over-encompassing jurisdiction that engulfs my neighborhood.
That's how we've set up our system. Our system is,
and that's how the crown set up theirs.
Hang on a second.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.